Hello everybody, I hope you're all well. Thursday again. I can't believe it's actually Thursday. I don't know where this week's gone. It's just vanished. So it's another cold day outside. So I thought it's cleaning the house or it's creating a video for YouTube. Guess what one? Definitely not the cleaning. I mean, I've tidied my craft room and I must admit, it feels lovely to be creating in a clean space. So today I've not got any plan. The only plan I've got is to use turquoise and lime paint by Dina Wakley. This is one of the old pots. They come in the little bottles now, but I've got these paints, but they do come in the little bottles. And then ruby. So we've got turquoise, lime and ruby. Those are the three colours that I want to use. And the only other plan that I've got is I've pulled some stamps out and I want to use Plant Your Dreams stamp set. Now, I've not used this for a bit and it's been neglected. And it's just been neglected because it's a case of I'm always on to the next new release and actually designing a new release. And I don't like to neglect stamps. I like to make sure they're used. And I just think this stamp set is beautiful. For one, it's got this lovely text here where it says seed, plant, garden, bulb. And that is such a useful stamp. It will go with every stamp set that I've created. So it's just such a brilliant stamp. And then we've got the Crocosmia and we've got the Strelitzia. And it's a beautiful stamp set. It's a really good size. The flowers are a really good size. I've got things stuck on the wrong way. What am I doing here? We've got things stuck on the wrong way. It's got brilliant sentiments. It's just got loads of things that are just so appealing about this stamp set. The Strelitzia, I've done loads of cards with the Strelitzia. And you'll find them on my Pinterest board. But as you can see, this Strelitzia is just a fantastic size stamp. It really is beautiful. So I'm going to use this stamp set, but I'm probably going to use the pear because I want to use that pear in a project. So we're going, that's what that stamp set as well used. That's why it keeps falling off the plastic, because it needs washing. So that's the only plan I've got so far. So that's as far as the plan goes. Other than the fact that I'd got this piece of card left, which is the reverse of Centura Pearl. Centura Pearl, you can use any smooth card. So Pink Frog, your Bristol Smooth, any card like that that's nice and smooth. So any's absolutely fine. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my brayer. So I'm going to get some spare card just so that I can bray it off should I need to, because I think that's important. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit of turquoise paint and a little bit of lime paint. Now I'm using paints this time because we've used inks a few times in the last YouTube videos, and I'm often asked about the brayer and the fact that some people don't have any luck with the brayer. I love the Speedball brayer. I think this is the 4-inch one. I love the Speedball brayer because it's not too hard. It's got a little bit of give in it, so I find it easier to use. So, and for cleaning, I just use some Biotex and soak it in that and then give it a good scrub and it cleans. And what I tend to do is I tend to brayer through my paints. And if you see, I brayer the paints out thinly, so it's all over mainly all over the brayer, like so. So you've automatically got a blend there on the brayer. And what I do is I brayer by lifting the card and flicking. So I'm flicking the paint onto the card. I sort of lift and flick. I don't go like that and just roll it. I lift and flick. it's a wrist action. So I lift and flick that. And I put enough paint down so that I've used all that paint. So I've got a beautiful blend on the card, and that could be a background in itself, just so that you can see that beautiful blend. If you find that you don't get a blend, then just go over it again with another layer of paint and just keep working. But try and just develop that wrist action with your brayer. That's all it is. Just takes a bit of practice. But guess what? It's a background. So it's just not important at all. It really isn't important. It's just a background. And what I can do is just brayer off. As you can see, I didn't use too much paint because there's no paint on that brayer. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to add some ruby. Now, I only want a touch of this paint, and I'm going to brayer it out. Now, some of you say that you don't like then adding a darker colour on the top because it isn't random enough. So what you can do is I've braided it out on the card, and you can just dab your card onto that thin layer of paint, and then you will get a random look. So you just, can you see? Look how random that is. And all you've done is brayer it out onto your non-stick craft sheet, and then you're just picking it up. How random is that? That gives you a more random feel than brayering it straight over the card. And you can just brayer some more red over the non-stick craft sheet. And if you find you haven't got enough, you can then just pick it up from the non-stick craft sheet. Perfect. Don't even need any more. That works beautifully. So then you can give your brayer a wipe if you wish. I always tend to give it a little bit of a wipe when I've used a powerful colour, because a powerful colour can affect all the other colours. So I do tend to wipe when I've used a strong colour. Now, I'm using the Dina Wakley paints, and the Dina Wakley paints are opaque, and that means that they layer beautifully. So that's an advantage of using the opaques, because they do layer really nicely. So just giving my brayer a little wipe, like so. And I just leave my brayer up like this. A friend of mine reminded me about this. I used to hold it, I used to just dump it down like this, mainly because when I was demoing, I was in so much of a rush to go to the next project. I'd just place it down like this. So what you need to do is you need to keep your brayer like this, so that if you've got any crusty bits or you've got any sharp bits on your non-stick craft sheet, it doesn't embed into your brayer and therefore cause any marks. So you just need to keep it upright. So I've got a lovely background here, absolutely glorious. So what I want to do is I want to take the pear stamp, which I've now dumped right over the far end that I can't see. And we're just going to stamp now. I've got my A5 acrylic block. I do think I'm going to have to give the back just a little bit of a wipe, because the pear is so well used that it needs a bit of a wipe. And again, I have got some projects on Instagram with the pear stamp, should you wish to see any more projects. So just going to place that down like so, and then what I'm going to do is just stamp. Now I only need the pear, I don't need the background, but if we get a bit of that background, that's absolutely fine, because I'm just going to cut it out anyway, so it's not a problem at all. And just as I'm patting the stamp, my cupboard is then rattling, which is just brilliant. You need a bit of rattle, don't you? Not. The other advantage of this stamp set is that it's got some splatters on the stamp set, which is a beautiful addition, having the splatters on the stamp set. So just going to add this here. But can you see it's got those beautiful splatters here, which are another addition. So it's only, I can stamp the words again. I've just missed the F for the fruit, but I can stamp that again if I need that. But I'm just stamping the pear because it's the pear I want at the moment. And again, with the acrylic blocks, whether it's A5, A4, border or A6, you can lift that acrylic block just to make sure that you get that central area. Beautiful. And I just love that. And we've had some laughs in my online workshops because we call this the wonky pear. So we have had a laugh. Let me just get a piece of scrap paper. And it was purposely designed to be wonky because most of the pears that are in my fridge, trust me, they're wonky. They're not straight. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit of colour. So I'm just going to grab some Distress Oxide. So I need, so why didn't I get the colours out when I first started? Nobody knows. I need peeled paint. And the one I want is, of course, not going to be where I want it to be. So we've got crushed olive. We've got, I would like peeled paint. Why is the colour that you want never on the top? That's when you know at least it's real and I'm actually doing the video live. I'm not doing the prep. So there we go, peeled paint. There we go. And what I want to do is just add, I think I'll add a little touch of red. Just because I think the touch of red will just bring that red from the background. There we go. So I've got my Distress Oxides. If you use the Distress inks, they'll be a lot brighter. So you just need to remember that. This will give more of a chalky. I'm just making sure that this brush is clear because I've been using it with purples and blues and I don't think that's going to go down too well, do you, for a pear? Not at all. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my crushed olive. Just add some of the crushed olive. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some water, just squeezing my water brush to the pear. And then I'm going to pick up a little fibre, which is not what I want, and just add some of this crushed olive just to the pear. So I've added quite a bit of water just so that I get a water effect at the moment, mainly because I don't want to add too much colour and then I've got nowhere to go. So I'm just adding that crushed olive. Nothing technical in that whatsoever. Let's add a little bit to the leaf, a little bit of water. And it doesn't matter if you go over the edges because you're literally going to cut it out, so it's not a problem. And I just think this is a lovely image because if you want to send something to a gardener, you can mix it with the other stamps, with the flowers, because can you imagine, you can have flowers tucked around the back, so you could mask off the pear and put some flowers at the back as well. So it's just a brilliant image to use. So I'm now using a little bit of peeled paint just to give me a little bit more depth. So I think we need a little bit more peeled paint. Just to give a little bit more depth to the leaf. And you take your time when you're just colouring. Just because it does look a lot better if you just take your time. So I'm just adding that. And this pear is quite wet. Now what I want to do is add a little bit of the red, just a little tiny bit, just to mix it a little bit with the green. And I think I'll just use my spritzer bottle just to bring me a bit of water. Of course, I've got a spritzer bottle that is half, with only half water in. One advantage of prepping is that you make sure that you've got everything. So I'm just bringing a little bit of that colour, just from the red, just a little touch. Little bit of touch of the red just to the leaf, a little, just so it's got a hint of the colour. Let me just lift that up. It's got a little touch of the red as a hint here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let that rest for a few moments and then I'll cut it out. I think I may actually need to cut it out now so that I know where my project is going. So let's just cut that out. So just remember, you're not going to cut yours out until it's dry, mainly because it's just far too wet to really be cutting out. So you're just going to make it dry. You can heat it with your heat tool. I forgot to colour the stem, which we need to do. So you can dry it with your heat tool because that's not going to do any harm. Just going to cut this out, and it's such a lovely image to cut out. I actually love the leaf on its own. I just think that's lovely. I may actually use the leaf on its own anyway. Just to cut this out. The problem is, because the card is so wet, it's going to bend. But we'll work with it. We'll work with it. Like so. Nice, easy image to cut out. Nothing complicated. And I like an image you can cut out so you can make it look different. So my pear is going to go on here. But what I'm thinking is, if I can just have some more leaves, and I'm going to want some stamping. So I may put some stamping behind, just behind the pear. So let's get the stamp that I said I absolutely adore, which is this one. So let's just remove the pear. Let's place that down. I'm going to have to give this a wipe at the back because it's got more embossing powder on it than stamp, I think. So I think it's actually more embossing powder and paint than it is actual stamp. So just give that a wipe, just so it sticks. Let's stick it at the top. Terrible way to treat your stamps, Tracy. Terrible way. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to ink up part of those words. And I'm using VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink. So I've just inked up this part of the words. Oops, I couldn't pick that up then. So my pear's going here. And what I want to do is just add part of the words here. Just so that it's stamped there. Just so it's more of a background than anything else. Just allow that ink to sit, because remember, you're going onto a painted surface. I mean, I don't have to press too hard because they're just words. And I mean, I'm not being funny, but those are just lovely words. Seed, seed, plant, flower, leaf, dig, grow. I just think they're lovely words. So I'm just going to blot those because it's on a painted surface, and look how much ink you get off that surface. Just because you've laid that layer of paint. So just give that a really good blot. Keep blotting. And then what you can do is you can grab your heat tool and just give it a heat. I don't want to heat it too much because that's when your card bends all over the place. So I don't want to give it too much of a heat because your card then bends. And I know sometimes that can be a problem as well. Yeah, there we go. I think most of that is sorted. So what we've got is we've got that. So it's going to be like that. So I want a little few more words now. So what do I want now? We can use the same words, can't we? Let's use the same words. You can use the other words as well. Just to bring them out a little bit more. Like so. Just bring them out a little bit more. You don't need to press too hard because you're literally just adding words. You're not adding anything that's too detailed, so you don't need to press really hard. So that's beautiful so far. So you can see, look how that's looking. It sort of flows around here. So what we're going to do is, I think we'll just add a few words here as well. Even though some may get covered up depending if I use another leaf. So it's absolutely fine. I don't mind that at all. Just add some more words there. And that's what I love about this stamp, because it's just such a lovely background in itself. It really is. So just, whoops. And this is not going to be too difficult of a card, you know, it's not going to give us too much difficulty. But we can still have a nice card. Just because something isn't too difficult doesn't mean that it can't be a lovely card. And if you're going to dry it quite a bit, just remember to dry the back of your card as well, just so that it flattens that card out. Again, just make sure, just use your blotting paper, just to make sure that you've got no ink that's going to cause you much problem. There we go, let's just give that. So my pear is going to go here, and I'm going to add a little bit more colour to the pear at the moment. So I do want to add a little bit more colour. See, and I don't know whether I want a little bit more stamping, but we'll judge that. We'll judge that at the end. So what I want to do is grab the pear again. And this time I just want to grab and stamp the leaf. So where's a scrap piece of card? I've always got plenty of scraps, so that's fine. So what I want to do is just grab some of those words. I think I stamped the word pear. Oh, it's there. I was thinking, yes, but where's that piece of card that I stamped it on? So I couldn't find it. So I just want the leaf, maybe the fruit wording, and the pear, and the leaf. And we can add a bit more colour to our pear as well. Hopefully that'll be enough. Yes, that's absolutely fine. So what we can do now is just place those on one side, and let's bring this back in again. Let's just use that crushed olive again, and we're just going to bring a little bit more depth just to the pear. Let's not forget that stem this time. We did forget the stem this last time. So just give it a little bit more depth. like so, and then a little bit of peeled paint. And if you can see, I've left a little bit of space in the centre of the pear just to give it some lightness, just so that it isn't all covered up, just so that the colour is a lot lighter. Add some more depth around this edge here. A little bit more depth to the leaf. Give that a little bit more. There's a little bit that keeps arriving. There we go. Thank you. It's just following me around. A little bit of depth around the outside edge. Like so. Just leave a little bit of lightness and whiteness. And then what I'm going to do is just add a little bit of that red again, which is candied apple. Little touch of that red, just to the leaf. Little touch. And if you add too much, just add a little bit of green over the top. So I've hardly got any of the red on my non-stick craft sheet. I don't want to add too much. And I will dry this with my heat tool afterwards. So I don't want to add too much. So you can pick up the greens and just tone down that red a little bit more. So what we need to do now is take our greens and just add that to the leaf again. So again, there's plenty of water that I've added down. And then pick up the darker one. I think I need a little bit more darkness with the peeled paint. So you can take your time and spend a lot more time just colouring your image than I am. Because the only thing is, when you're doing a video, you do tend to rush a little bit more because you're aware you're recording a video and you don't want it to be, you know, too long-winded. Sometimes a little short video can be just as interesting as a long video. So just adding a little touch of that candied apple. Just a little, just so it coordinates with my other one. There we go, just so it coordinates a little bit. Right, let them just rest a minute. Right. Whoops, pick it. I can't even put my lid on me brush now. The strength, oh, poor thing. I haven't got the strength. Right, what I want to do is I'm going to add a little bit of white, even though some of it may go over my words. Whoops. I know some of it may go over my words, but I'm not really too bothered. I know the interest is there. I know the detail is there. So I've got my Snowflake Fresco Finish paint, and I'm going to brayer that over a few of my circles. And this is the Lots of Dots stencil. So I'm just giving that a spritz off camera with water. And what I'm going to do is just add a little bit of that there. Just grabbing another piece of kitchen roll. So I just spritzed it off camera. Just spritz that stencil with water, just to give me a little bit of whiteness and brightness to the background. That's fine. So if you've got a little bit too much water, just dab. There we go, just dab that, just so that you haven't got too much water just on the bottom bit. There we go. Just so that you can see that background. Can you see the texture still showing through? Beautiful. So we're just going to tidy our mess up. just because it really helps if we don't get in a total mess. Oh, and the joy, I've got a new baby wipe wrapper to open, which is usually a pain when you're doing a live video. So just giving my stencil a wipe, and you could, if you wanted to, wipe that onto a piece of scrap card, just so that you create yourself another background. So don't waste, you know, you've got loads of time. It's not like you're in a rush. You can just add that to another background. So don't be rushed. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give that a dry. I just think the white really does lift it a little bit. Just dry that from behind and back up again. And while we're here, let's just give that a little bit of a dry as well. Just so it's a little bit more crusty. So can you see I've got a lovely background there, just a beautiful background. So what I'm going to do is, I'm sure I've got some other green pencils. I knew I had. Always need to look properly, Tracy. So we've got some green pencils. Do you like my little container from my friend? This is my little pen container from my friend with a black pug on, because I've got 2 black pugs. So it's perfect for me just to hold my pens and paper. So that's what I'm always reaching for. When you hear me rattling around, it's because I'm reaching for those. So let's see if we can sharpen. Do you know, with this pencil sharpener, I've noticed that if some lead gets stuck, it is a pain. So if you get some lead, if you get some pencil sharpening stuck here on my pencil sharpener there, it doesn't work. So I've noticed that. So I can't sharpen my pencil. And what's good is you end up with sharpenings all over your desk. Oh, it's never easy, is it, when you're doing a live video? Shall we try again? So we'll see if we can sharpen the pencil this time. Oh, look, it works. You're supposed to turn the sharpener, not the pencil. You're supposed to turn the sharpener to sharpen your pencils, not the pencil. But that feels so awkward to me. But that's what you're supposed to do. So, but you need to work with sharp pencils. Guess what? I still haven't ordered myself a grey Inktense one. And I keep saying I'm going to do it. So what I'm going to do now is just have a look where this is going. So it's going here. So I can add a little bit of pencil here. So I'm using my grey polychromo pencils. If you haven't got polychromo pencils, just use any pencils. And if not, don't do this step if you haven't got it. Or you can use your Distress Oxide inks and add a little bit of depth to your circles, or you can put your stencil back over and use your Distress crayons. So you can do it that way as well. So it's entirely up to you. So you're not going to see much on camera at the moment until I add a little bit more depth to those circles, and you will see it come to life. What I like is you can still see the red underneath. I love that. So just adding a little bit of green underneath each of those circles, just to give me a little bit more depth. It's not underneath, it's sort of inside the circle, just to give me a little bit more depth to each of those circles. And I just think it's worth adding, because it's another little element that makes your card stand out from the crowd. I just think those little details are worth it personally. So I can just go around and add a little bit more of that lighter green. Just to bring it, let me just lift this up so you can see. Just so you can see that here it's adding a little bit more depth to the circles. It makes them pop. And I just think it's worth it. Because when I'm creating a card or anything else, I like to make it so that the recipient is really pleased with what they're receiving. So I often spend a good, I mean, I'm not going to do it on screen, but I often spend a good 15 minutes just doing this process, because it's my favourite bit, just adding the depth to those circles. It's just something I adore doing. And it doesn't matter what stencil you use. It's a favourite thing of mine to do. Done this for years though. We used to do this many, many years ago. Forgotten that poor little one there. Oh, now I'm talking to circles. I'm talking to circles on a piece of card. Oh, dear me. So just add a little bit of shading there. A little bit of shading there. Oh, yes, that's lovely. So what I want to do now is I just want to add, this is far too wet. So what I'm thinking, you see, is it's a little bit wet, but I want to add a little bit of this green with my pencil. Because what happens is the peeled paint, when you add water to it, it goes more yellowy than green. So I want to just make sure that, yes, pears do have a yellowy tinge, but I just want to make sure there's a little bit of that green in there, just to make it look so that it blends with this background, just so that it works with it. So I'm just adding a little bit of this pencil, and I'm just using it on its side, just to add a little bit of that, just because it will just work a little bit better having that green. Look at that. Look at them circles. See, it's up to you what words you have. That is now ant. But it's up to you which words you have showing. Entirely up to you. But I just love that. So what we're going to do now is we're going to think about the rest of it. So let me just cut this leaf out. So you can even add a little bit of this green from your polychromo pencil, just so that it blends with everything else. So just, you know, polychromo pencils are great for adding depth and shading, so just take your time when you're adding your colouring. Just give it a bit of time and effort just to colour in. and each leaf needs to look different. You know, you don't want the leaves to look exactly the same, because that way it doesn't look very natural. You know, you want them to look different. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut this leaf out. Like so. Just cut that out. Again, another leaf that is very easy to cut out, but I just love the shape of it. So what I'm thinking is I'm going to add it here, and I might add a little character, you see. So we're going to keep building. So what I want to do now, just move that out the way, is I want one of my little characters. So this is from the Up and Away stamp set. And I just want one of my little characters. Now, do I want the bunny rabbit? Yeah, I think we're going to have the bunny rabbit. So I can use my A6 little block, like so. Spare piece of card. We've got plenty on here. So just use that. I've got a sore throat and my voice keeps coming in and out. So just add our rabbit, like so. And he doesn't need much pressure at all, because he's just a little rabbit. Let me just place that down. But if you look, just look at the detail on the rabbit. Just the little bit of text. Look at his little crossed arms. He's just lovely. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to colour him with a 2HB pencil. Because I don't want to add too much brightness to the rabbit, because I don't want him to jar against my project. So I'm just using a HB pencil. I've always loved colouring with a HB pencil, mainly because you don't have to be an expert. You just scribble it on, that's a professional term, add a bit of shading with the same pencil, and you look so good. So just adding a little bit. And what I tend to do when I'm at home is, I'll spend a good 15 minutes just colouring the little bunny, just adding shading where it should be, or where I think it should be. Hang on a minute, I'm no professional. I just add it where I think it should be. So here, where his ears are, where they overlap, there should be a little bit of shading. A little bit there, a little bit here, where his little fat belly is. Because he's a little fat rabbit. He's lovely, he's cuddly, aren't you? He's just lovely. Little bit of shading under there. Oh, he's so lovely. Little bit more shading under the bow. Little bit of shading under the nose. Just so you can see the little bunny. Bless him. And what I tend to do is I will tend to spend a lot more time. And what you'll find is with a HB pencil, you know, with the other pencils, I say sharpen. With a HB pencil, sometimes a blunter pencil works a little bit better. So just take your time. It's one of them things that you just need to not rush. You will spend a lot more time blending. Trust me, with the HB pencil, you can still get a beautiful blend, but you do need to take the time. You don't need to rush. Again, it's layering down pencil and layering down the colour, but you just have to take your time. You don't have to rush that process. We haven't got time for that, so let's just get on with it and just cut that out. Cut my little rabbit out. We're going to have to add a little red dicky bow, aren't we? Definitely. Little red dicky bow and a little red nose, just because we can. So just cutting the little rabbit out. And again, he's not too difficult to cut out at all. If you find it difficult to cut out, then just add a white border. But he isn't difficult at all, to be honest. I love adding the little bits to my project. There we go. And the rabbit's in the fruit garden, you see. But I must admit, I would spend a little bit more time just colouring my little rabbit, bless him. You're a little bit scribbled at the moment, aren't you, darling? So we're just going to add a little red dicky bow. Little red nose, because he's out and it's a little bit cold, so his nose is red. And the idea is that my little rabbit will sit on the leaf like this, you see? And you can bring him a bit over so you can see that word leaf. Oh yes, so let's get sticking down some of the pieces. Couldn't think what they were called then. And I've ordered like a little bottle to try and decant some of my glue into these thin bottles to see if these work, because I know some of you have said that you find these glue bottles difficult to press. So I'm going to test one of them just to see if they will be any different. Like so. As you can see, I'm not pressing it down at the moment, just until I decide where everything's going. As you know me by now. I don't press everything down until I'm sure. Now we're going to have it like that, because the little rabbit is going there. Yeah, that's it. So now I know, when I know everything's okay, I grab my copier piece and then I can press them down. I don't press them down until I know that I'm happy where everything's going. So my little rabbit's going here, like so. He is going there. He's sitting in amongst the fruit. Of course, he's going to have a hat. You do know that, don't you? You do know my little rabbit's going to have a hat, just so that you can see how that's coming together. Just so that you can see that. So let's just stamp his hat. I think I've got enough scrap paper just to stamp the hat. We're going to use all these words as well. So grab his little hat. There we go. I love this little hat. It always makes me happy stamping this little hat. Of course, he's going to have a handsome green hat. Now, if you want and you haven't got polychromo pencils, don't worry. Just spray your paint onto a piece of card and stamp the hat over the painted background. And then you've got the same colour hat as is in your background. So don't worry if you haven't got pencils. There's always a way around it. So don't stress about that. So I'm just lightly adding layers of the polychromos. I'm not pressing too hard. In fact, I'm pressing very lightly just to add that colour. because I don't want it to be too dark. I'm trying to keep the lightness as well into some of my project. Because I've covered the whole background, I'm still keeping some open space, but I'm trying to keep it as light and bright as possible, because I just think that's important. It is for me anyway. I like some, even if I'm using vintage tones, I still like a bit of vibrancy to those vintage tones, just so that it doesn't look too dull and like mud. So just, there we go, there's his little hat. So just so you can see his little hat. Bless. And even the little hat has got text on. Little touches like this make me happy. I love the little sort of finishing touches and faffing around with getting all the layers. Just, it's what I enjoy doing. There you go. Then he's going to have his little hat. Because the sun's out and he needs a little hat. And plus he's a dapper bunny. Aren't you, buddy? He's a dapper bunny. Just so that you can see, look at me dapper little bunny with his hat. Bless him. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut this word pear out. And you always go quiet when you start cutting out. It's just natural. Like so. There's our pear. Just want to grab an index clip. I love it because my room's all tidy and I can just go to things, so it makes me really happy. So I'm going to add the word pear here onto my pear. Like so. Add that there. Just allow that to set a little bit. Just going to add my index clip. And my nails are in such a state because I've been gardening and I've gardened more than usual. My hands are quite sore. Add the pear, come on. That's it, sit where I want you to. And I'm afraid I'm one of those people that really does faff. It's just the way I am. Let me just grab that sentiment that was on the same pear stamp set. Oh, come on, Tracy. On the same pear stamp set is the sentiment, plant your dreams. So, and I'm a great believer in that. So will this fit on my A6? Oh yes, it does. So grab another scrap of card. Let's just move this up here a minute. So, and I like the fact these words are a little bit bigger because I can use it as a whole sentiment across the card, or I can cut it up. So I do like that fact. So plant your dreams. And again, you don't have to press too hard because it's just a sentiment. So it's not like you have to press really hard. Let me just cut it out as a whole initially, but we're not going to use it as a whole. You see, you could have it going across your card like that or like that. So if you, because my card is going to have mat and layers, you could have it going on like that. But I'm going to cut my words up, just make them a little bit smaller. Just think this is the perfect sentiment. And because that background has got a lot of colour on and it's covered in detail, I'm keeping the sentiment white. That's just me. If you don't want to keep your sentiment white and you want to add some colour around the edges, that's up to you. I don't want to. I will add some shading, but nothing else. So plant your dreams. There we go. So we're going to add those. You see, in a simple card, just develops. Especially when you've got no plan. Because I'd got no plan apart from the paint colours I was using and the stamps I was using. I'm always determined to use all my stamps and to show that all the stamps work together. I think it's really important to show that and to showcase how they can all work together. So for me, that's important. So I'm just waiting for that to just grab hold. Just like so. So I just need to press that sentiment down a few times just for it to grab hold. And what I always tend to do, as always, is just use my copier paper just to press it down. And then I've got my Inktense pencil, which I've sharpened. I keep trying not to sharpen it too much or else I'm going to end up with no pencil left. Why don't I just order one online? Because I keep forgetting. I go from doing a video and then I'll go into the garden, then I'll do something else. I'm terrible for not just... I'm a right flitter. I flit from one thing to another. Don't know whether you do that. But I'm never sat stuck to one thing. And if I'm sitting, I'm always answering emails or something. So I never just sit. So just adding my Inktense pencil just around my sentiments. And you won't have to hold yours in place because yours will be dry. Because you won't be like me and doing everything while it's still wet. I can still feel a little bit of glue there. So just this shading will just make everything pop. And I just love all the layers, the layers below. They just look lovely. Just add a little bit of shading below the leaf here. I think I'll need some below the pear as well. So let's do some below the pear. Just so that's got a little bit of shading as well. Just below there. So a little bit there. A little bit below the sentiments. It's only touch because you've got all those paint layers. So it doesn't, it's not too overpowering. Just to add that little bit of shading. There we go. I did order myself some new water brushes and I still keep using the old one that's really in a right mess. It's just shot to pieces. So let me just show you. Oh, we've got a little bit under here as well. There we go. Let me just show you just how all that shading just makes everything pop. Just brings everything to life. And let's just give that a wipe so we're not in a mess. And then where's my stencil? So I've got this stencil here, and I'm just going to add a couple of, where's my black Posca pen? So I've got my black Posca pen, and I'm just going to go around these two circles just on my stencil, just to add a couple of circle elements. So I'm just using my stencil just to add a couple of circles. You could just do them freehand, but obviously with the stencil you can get a perfect circle. Just to add 3 circles, just to give me a black element. Then I just want to add some Posca white pen. Like so. Where's my... I forgot something that's a little bit finer. And then just add a little few dots. I should have done this first, but there you go. Just add some little dots. There we go. So what I'm going to do is just grab another index clip. We'll add the index clip once we've just stuck it to the card blank, to the mount. Spit it out, Tracy. So I'm going to add this to the card blank here, like so. You see, it makes it pop when you add it to the black card. It really does make it pop. Obviously, just make sure that when you add your index clips, that those are stuck down. You could stick it down on the mats first and then stick your index clip, just because then you're not worried that it's not going to stick properly. Just pick that up, just to make sure. There we go. I do like them colours, and that little pop of red is just enough. It's not too overpowering. So just get a clean piece of copier paper. Just place this down onto here, just so I'm working on a clean surface. Grab my card blank. My card blank is 5 by 7 inches. So just grab your card blank. Can't believe how long one card can take me. So just like that. But this pear would work beautifully with the flowers as well, if you wanted to add flowers rather than the character. But I like the little character. Just think he's lovely. So then I'm going to add my index clip. Like so. Just making sure that's sitting on the card. And what you can do is I've cut an insert. So we grab the little insert. And then what we can do is not find your acrylic block because it's see-through. grab the acrylic block, grab your little bunny again. So the piece of card is 4.5 inches by 6.5 inches for the card blank. So it's 4.5 by 6.5, and the card blank itself is 5 by 7. So just add the little rabbit just to the inside of the card. Got a little hair on there somewhere. And then I'm going to take a little bit, a very tiny bit, not much, hardly anything at all. Just get rid of that excess and just add a little bit of shading just under there. Just seeing what we've got left. So we've got this fruit, which you could also clear emboss with white, and it'll look like a little vintage label. So you could clear emboss that and it would work beautifully. Just, you see, I use these things and then I think, oh yes, we're going to use that on the front of the card. And then we've got this other Now I'm going to leave him like that, I've decided. So we're going to add this to here. So this can go on the inside of the card. Onto a black mat that's 1/4 inch bigger. There we go. So that's the inside of our card. Just bring in my main card because I'm just going to add this fruit element just behind his little hat. There we go. Now you know what I'm going to do now, don't you? Just going to go round this little bit here, just to add a little bit of shading. Just a little bit. There we go. And that is our card finished. So this is your insert. There's your insert. And there's the front of your card. Just going to bring that up just so that you can see all the layers of detail. Just so you can see and appreciate why we do and what we do. Just so that you can see that. Absolutely love that. I just think that is lovely. So just place it on that white background, just so that you can see that as the parting shot. So I hope you've enjoyed that. I hope you'll tag me in your makes. I love seeing them. I'm just having a look now at my card and I'm really pleased with it. Absolutely delighted with it. So I hope you enjoy it as well, and I hope you enjoyed the process. Have a lovely day everybody, and I'll see you all soon. Bye for now.